Now let's flip over to AEW, because we talked about Charlotte Flair being out with an injury. Unfortunately for Tony Khan, one of his biggest names is also going to be out indefinitely, and that man is Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega posted a photo from his hospital bed, never a good sign, on Friday afternoon with the following message: "I can't really sugarcoat this. I'm out indefinitely. I tried to keep pushing past the pain for as long as I could until it became too much. Luckily, doctors caught me when they did. I will be here, so in the meantime, please enjoy wrestling." That would explain why he seems so out of it in that awful segment on Dynamite where he and Chris Jericho challenged Big Bill and Ricky Starks to a tag team title match at World's End, which now is no longer happening. I don't know what their plan is as far as the tag team title match is concerned, but that ain't going to be the match at World's End, even though they have not officially called the match off yet. If you watch that segment back, he just seems so detached from it all. He was flubbing his lines, and it makes sense now that this guy was in a tremendous amount of pain. I was in pain watching that segment, but he was in worse pain. And per Sean Ross Sapp, Omega had been ill all throughout the week, even before his match on Collision last weekend against Ethan Page. So he wrestled that match sick, not realizing how sick he really was. And he still did his promos and everything else that was expected of him. And then after that show on Wednesday, he sought medical intervention. And he was hospitalized with diverticulitis. And diverticulitis is no joke. That is what nearly killed Brock Lesnar. It's what ended his MMA career the second time when he tried to come back. In Brock's case, it was so serious, he had to have surgery. And the second time he got hit with it, he had to have a foot of his colon removed. And he went undiagnosed for a year. So Brock was knocking on death's door if they didn't catch it and treat it when they did. And I know Meltzer had some more details last night as far as Kenny, he's been in pain for a while, and what happened is he thought that maybe it was a hernia, because if you remember all those injuries that Kenny Omega had last year, and he had to be operated on multiple times, he had a pretty serious hernia injury, and he thought that maybe it was a hernia again, and he was having bloating, and he wasn't really sure what was causing it. Maybe it was his diet, but he just kept working. But it had nothing to do with that. But I mean, look, for these wrestlers to have to ask for help, you know that they have to be in a tremendous amount of pain, because just think of all these wrestlers who tough it out, right? We're always living in pain. We're always banged up. It's just part of the job. For it to be that bad that he finally said, okay, I can't take this anymore, just tells you how serious the situation really was. And so as far as, diverticulitis, what it is, for those who don't know, it's these little tiny pouches that form on your colon. And when those pouches become inflamed, that's when you have diverticulitis. And it's not a pleasant thing. I know people who have had it. It's just not fun at all. And look, I respect the fact that Omega tried to push through it, but when you're hurt or you're sick, you got to look out for yourself. I mean, that's really where your first loyalty needs to be. Not to anybody else. Not to the fans, not to Tony Khan, not to your opponent. It has to be to yourself. Now, in his case, we don't know if he needs surgery or not. That's not usually the first treatment for it. Not everybody needs to get cut open. Even if he doesn't, he could be out for a while. I mean, this is not the sort of thing where it's like, give him a week, he'll be as good as new. We'll get some IVs in him and antibiotics or whatever. That's not how it works. So he needs to take all the time that he needs to get himself better. I don't even care what they do with the tag team titles at this point. I really don't. I don't think it's relevant at all. Tony Khan at the Final Battle Scrum had this to say about Kenny's situation. He said, I know Kenny put out a statement of his own, and I completely support it. And I spoke to him today, and of course, we've been very concerned. Honestly, it's hard to focus on pro wrestling when somebody that you care about, somebody that is so responsible for all of this in so many ways. I don't know if we could have launched AEW, and this would have all been possible without Kenny Omega. Certainly, he's as influential on the launch of AEW as anybody, and he's one of the greatest pro wrestlers in the world, and he's also a really important figure in this promotion and in this business. So I think we're all really concerned. Thankfully, he's communicating. I think we're hoping for the best, and I think he's taken a turn for the better. The most important thing is that he got help from the doctors at the right time and did not wait any longer because he was in a lot of pain. I don't think anybody knew just how sick he was. I think I'll leave it to him to give updates because he's already communicating. And if he is, then that means, his health is doing better. But we are all praying for Kenny Omega, and there are reasons to be optimistic. There were some dirtbags on Twitter, and I don't even know why he bothered responding to it, because he posted a reply to it. But there were some dirtbags on Twitter giving Omega shit for diverticulitis being listed as the name for Brock Lesnar's F5 in the AEW Fight Forever game, which I didn't even realize they did that. That is pretty fucked up. But Omega had nothing to do with that. And these people were messaging him saying, oh, it's karma that you got diagnosed with diverticulitis. And Omega wrote back and he said, look, even if I was in charge of everything in game development, I didn't even know that name existed in there. He said he was the creative lead in the early stages of the game. Call move lists are not a part of that, but sure, I deserve everything I get and worse. These people have nothing better to do with their lives than troll a man laying in a hospital bed battling a serious illness. But this is what happens when you get dropped on your head as a child. The way that these people were. I think they should donate their brains to science when they die.